Welcome to TrueNYC. I'm Meredith Gansman. On today's show, we have with us Barry Moltz, speaker and author of You Have to Be a Little Crazy and Bounce. And he's going to talk to us about everything from what it takes to start as an entrepreneur to balancing your resiliency, success, and failure once you get there. So take a look.
Well, I always tell people is that I went with IBM for the first 10 years of my career. Then I left there because my sales manager used to have contests where first prize was lunch with him. So I always asked him, what's second prize? 2 lunches with you? And I think at that point I knew that I really want to start my own business. So I left there, and the first business I started, I went out of business. The second business I started, I was kicked out of business, but my 2 partners, about 2 weeks before my first son was born. Then the third business, which I actually started 2 weeks after my first son was born, I was fortunate in 1999 to sell that business to pay back the bank the $1.3 million I owed them, and my wife tells me I got her back just about the same time. That's what I talk about in my latest book, Bounce, where it's cheer the really great times, more in the difficult times, but then bounce, take action so you can get ready for. I think we have to many times not only get past and let go of our failures, but sometimes I think we have to let go of our successes, because sometimes when we have, let's say, a lot of successes in a row, we think we're like King Midas. We think we have the golden touch. And many times you can't duplicate exactly the success you just had. Success, it's very much of a zigzag manner. You know, when I was growing up, my mother told me that every year I would get promoted, every year I'd make more money, and my career would be very linear. But it's not. As we know, careers have a lot of zigzags. Yeah, I think that in our society, one of the problems really is that what's ingrained in us is that there's always something to learn from failure, that we can't possibly move on from this spot until we figure out why failure came to us, what it's here to teach us. The problem with that, it keeps us stuck in that place where sometimes, just sometimes, there isn't always something to learn. Now we hold on to that because it makes us feel better. We think, God, failure couldn't have happened for no reason. And I gave 2 examples. One is in my last company, my largest customer was indicted by the government. So I keep thinking, what was I supposed to learn? Not do business with criminals? I knew that. One of my best employees left because her husband got a job in another state. I'm thinking, what should I learn? Not to hire married people? There's not always something to learn. We have to realize from failure is that it's just part of an entire business. Well, the first book really is, what is it really like to be an entrepreneur and start and grow your own business? The book was really written in 2003 as a response to all the entrepreneurs that came out of the late 90s, which said, being an entrepreneur is a get-rich-quick scheme. And as we know, it really isn't. And what I try to teach people in that book by using my life as an example is that you need to have passion if you're going to be an entrepreneur. You can't just do it for the money. If you only want money over the next 3 years, go find yourself a job, because you really can make more money immediately working for someone else. The only reason that you should go out and start your own business, as I said before, is you got to have passion, because when things are difficult, when you're really drawing on that resiliency, you're going to need that passion to get you through, right? Right. I think it's really important. I mean, there's this old expression in our society that winners never quit and quitters never win. Again, that's just ridiculous. The winners, the business winners in this world, they actually know when to quit. There's a great quote by that famous actor, Gene Autry, where he said, if you find yourself in a hole, the first thing you got to do is stop digging. And if you think about it, knowing when to fold your cards is very, very important. And a lot of entrepreneurs come to me and say, Barry, how do I know if it's time to quit? And I say, well, there are 2 things you should look for. One is, if you're running out of passion, if you don't want to come into the work every single day and do what you'll be doing, it's time to quit. Also, if you're running out of money and you can't see it turning around anytime soon, then it's also probably time to quit. I think it's very, very difficult. I mean, I think when I've been in places where I went out of business, I was kicked out of business, and it's like you're losing a member of your family. But you really, again, here's a point where you have to let go. Here's a point where you have to bounce, because many times a lot of people have been unhappy in their jobs and they say, well, I really want to find another job. And amazingly, they don't find another job until they're kicked out of the job or laid off. Then they're forced to find another job, and they find an amazing job. Same thing like, let's say you're with a very large customer, which you know is not very healthy for your company. You say, God, I really want to replace this customer. Many times you can't replace that customer until they leave, but then when they do, magically, another customer comes along. No, I think that we all want to wait, because we are, first of all, creatures of habit. The second thing, we always think that if only, Meredith, we had more information, we'd be able to make better decisions. And what I talk about in the second book, Bounce, is that you have to have bias towards action. I think that we spend far too much time on what I call premeditated business, that we shouldn't do all these business plans and strategies. We only really get feedback in our businesses when we take action, and that's what we have to do. Well, I used to write a lot of business plans, and then when I realized, when I started investing in businesses, that basically all business plans said exactly the same thing. In year 5, we all get rich, because they have to say certain things along the way. But what I tell people, I wrote the preface to The Complete Idiot's Guide to Business Plans. And what I wrote in the preface, the first sentence says, business plans are meaningless. What I mean by that is, the actual document you end up with really is not very meaningful. You'll probably never open it again. However, the process that you go through of writing the business plan, what does it cost to make your product? What does it cost to acquire a client? What's the lifetime value of a client? These kinds of things you learn in the process is much more important than the end result. Right. And I think that you can learn from the entire process. My point there is you always can't learn from a particular point, because many times something right now seems like a failure or something right now seems like a success, but in hindsight it becomes something different. I had a friend who was a big windsurfer, and he went out for the Olympics and he finished 3rd, which meant that he wasn't going to be able to go to the Olympics. Well, he didn't go, so he decided to start a business during the late 90s, and he ended up selling it for hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, which was the success, which was the failure? I love when I say that, because I get up on stage and I say, all right, now I want everyone to make one commitment. Of course, they're thinking, you got to go, go, go. I say you got to strive for minimal achievement. And what I mean by that is that really to be successful in business, you have to focus on one thing or a handful of things at a time. And I believe this is becoming increasingly difficult, because I am convinced we are raising a generation of attention deficit disorder individuals. Our culture is built on multitasking, which really is a fallacy, because productivity statistically goes down by 50% when you try to do one thing at a time. If we can focus on one thing at a time, it really will give us incredible power in the long run to accomplish a lot more. I think many times we get caught up in focusing on that grand vision. I believe if we also downsize our dreams, if we figure out what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3, in that same zigzag manner, we'll get to our goal much faster if we go too far and we don't know how to get there, what the steps are. Well, I think that it's good to dream big. I mean, I say that if we don't have dreams, we get nightmares. But somewhere along the line, you have to let go of the dream or just the vision. Many people hold on to the vision. That prevents them from talking to customers, because customers will tell you the reality of it. Have the big vision, but then step back and say, okay, what's the first step, the second step, and the third step I need in order to get to those interim goals? Now is a really good time to find great people for your business. Since a lot of people are out of work and people are having a difficult time finding jobs, you actually can find better people at a lower rate. So this is a time really to get them committed to your business. That's really the first thing. The second thing is, I believe you should really keep marketing and selling. In difficult times, there are a lot less people out there. There's a lot less competition. So if you do it, you'll stand out. Finally, another thing you have to do is you have to look at conserving your cash. What I'm seeing in a recession, cash definitely slows down. People aren't paying deposits on time, people are more slowly paying, and you have to make sure you monitor these things much more carefully, because that's the first thing that's going to go. Well, I think that you spend a certain period of time trying to learn from whatever happened. And I think that should be 24 hours, and then you should move on. But I will tell you, later on, you might go think back to that failure or success, and you might learn something additionally. But I think that you shouldn't spend a lot of time staying in one place. At the same time, I think you should be reflective. Many times people don't absorb it. I think it's good to celebrate. Go out with your friends. I think it's good to have a pity party. Say, woe is me, and feel sorry for yourself, but then let it go and move on. And I find that so many times in my life, if I can just bounce, I really will get to a much better place, because we as business people, Meredith, do give off a certain kind of vibe. And if we feel like we're in a great place, we're going to attract more business. If we feel like we're in a bad place, then end up repelling people.